After the death of the Master and the destruction of his super mutant army at the hands of the Vault Dweller, the New California wasteland was forever changed. Although the Vault Dweller was exiled from Vault 13 after his adventure and never seen again, his exploits would make him a wasteland legend. Thanks to the Vault Dweller's actions and deeds, settlements in the wasteland were able to grow and even prosper over the years and decades after the Unity Crisis of 2161 to 2162. In 2186, one settlement in particular, a small agricultural village of Shady Sands, would reorganize itself into the New California Republic, or NCR. This new nation dedicated itself to the old world values of democracy and the rule of law, indicating early signs that humanity was slowly but surely getting back on track toward rebuilding some form of civilization, at least in New California. But war never changes. In the 2230s, a new threat would emerge in New California, a clandestine organization comprising the remnants of the pre-war United States government, the Enclave. In this video, we'll be covering the events that unfolded in the years and decades after the Unity Crisis, the fate of the Vault Dweller, the rise of the New California Republic, and the return of the Enclave. After being exiled from his home of Vault 13 by Overseer Jackarin on May 10, 2162, the Vault Dweller began wandering the desert wastes. He was a changed man, with many things weighing deeply on him, including the strains of his journey, the loss of close friends and companions like Ian and Dogmeat, and his exile from the home he had fought so hard to protect. For a time, the Vault Dweller was furious with the Overseer's decision, but he slowly came to terms with his exile, admitting that perhaps the Overseer's decision was the right one after all. 2 days after his exile, the Vault Dweller cut all ties with his past life, removing his Vault 13 jumpsuit, never to wear it again. Upon learning of what the Overseer had done, many residents of Vault 13 became outraged, particularly the younger generation, and those who were close friends of the Vault Dweller. A faction led by 3 of the Vault Dweller's good friends, Teresa, Lyle and Pat, rebelled against the Overseer. They, along with many others, soon left Vault 13 in protest. The remaining residents believed that the Vault Dweller and those who had left perished in the wasteland. Overseer Jackarin was tried as a criminal for betraying the Vault Dweller and the entire Vault populace, and was sentenced to death by his peers. The position of Overseer was abolished, and the residents soon opened the Vault to trade and communication with the outside world. They established contact with the Brotherhood of Steel, who provided them with a mainframe computer to control and regulate the Vault automatically. The remaining Vault 13 residents would continue to live within the relative safety of the Vault for the next 80 years. Meanwhile, the rebellious residents of Vault 13 who left in 2162 had in fact survived. Soon after leaving the Vault, this group, led by Teresa, Lyle and Pat, came under attack by a pack of mutant creatures. They were saved by none other than the Vault Dweller himself, who became the group's leader and taught them how to survive in the harsh wasteland. On July 10th, the Vault Dweller and his group of followers, which now also comprised wandering bands of wastelanders who had joined them along the way, set out for the far northern regions of New California. After weeks of travel, they reached the inaccessible canyons of what was once southern Oregon. Here, they founded a village. The Vault Dweller chose the location due to its secure position beyond a dry valley, surrounded by a barren landscape, which would deter unwanted visitors. For a time, the Vault Dweller dispatched scouts to re-establish contact with Vault 13, but he eventually gave up, in favor of building and strengthening their new settlement. On August 18, 2167, construction of the village was completed, and it was named Areo. The new Areo villagers, who settled in a rustic, tribal lifestyle, appointed the Vault Dweller as their first tribal elder. The Vault Dweller taught his villagers the basics of survival, including hunting, farming, and other skills needed for the tribe to grow. He also taught the tribe the basics of engineering and science, in order to maintain their homes and craft new items and equipment for survival. The Vault Dweller, despite his rugged and hardened exterior, was able to find love, marrying his good friend and former Vault resident Pat. On October 2nd, 2188, the two were blessed with a daughter. Years passed by, turning into decades, and as the Vault Dweller grew older and his hair greyed, he knew his time was coming to an end. On January 16, 2208, the Vault Dweller, now aged 67, quietly left Areo in the middle of the night, leaving behind his old and tattered Vault 13 jumpsuit folded on his bed, alongside his written memoirs. The Areo tribals eventually believed he had perished in the wasteland, while others claimed that he had been taken by the sky spirits. The Vault Dweller's daughter soon took up her father's title of Areo Elder. With the Master dead and the FEV vats at the Mariposa military base destroyed, the super mutants of the Master's army were leaderless and weakened, vulnerable to a counterattack from the human outposts and settlements of New California. After assisting the Vault Dweller in destroying the Mariposa base, the Brotherhood of Steel waged a campaign against the remaining super mutant holdouts in the wasteland. Under the leadership of High Elder John Maxon and Head Paladin Rhombus, the Brotherhood of Steel's military operation was highly successful, driving the remnants of the Master's army and the Children of the Cathedral east towards the Sierra Nevada mountain range and beyond in the years following the Unity Crisis. Eventually, the Master's army broke apart. Surviving super mutants split off into different groups, each with their own goals. Many bands of super mutants migrated out of New California to the north and east in search of new places to settle. Some settled in the Mojave Wasteland at Black Mountain. One large group journeyed east to the Rockies and then beyond into the Midwestern Wasteland. Another group traveled even farther southeast into the wastes of Texas. Other super mutants simply laid down their weapons and settled in New California, attempting to coexist with humans and integrate into their society. After the Master's army disbanded, the Brotherhood of Steel found themselves at odds with their need for new recruits versus their code of technological secrecy. The debate continued at Lost Hills for some time during the 2180s, before the Council of Elders finally ruled against the sharing of technology with outsiders, convinced that the Brotherhood would endure as it had before. Further debate was silenced when the Elders ordered the minority who wished to share their technology on a special mission across the wastes. They would pursue the remnants of the Master's army beyond the treacherous Rocky Mountains. In order to accomplish this dangerous mission, the Brotherhood constructed a fleet of airships and then dispatched the vocal minority east in 2195. As the air fleet travelled over the Rockies, a violent storm broke out, dispersing the airships and throwing them far off course. The fleet was badly damaged, and smaller sections of the aircraft broke off, never to be seen again. The fraction of the crew that managed to survive struggled to keep their ships afloat, before finally crash landing in the outskirts of Chicago in the Midwestern Wasteland. Finding themselves stranded thousands of miles from the Lost Hills bunker, the survivors of the airship fleet rallied to form a new chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel, which soon diverged from the ideals of the old Brotherhood out west. The Midwestern Brotherhood of Steel went rogue, cutting all ties with Lost Hills and building a major power base for themselves in the Midwestern Wasteland. By 2197, the Midwestern Brotherhood had established a firm foothold in the ruins of Chicago and the surrounding areas, clashing with local raider tribes and the surviving bands of super mutants from New California. Vague news and rumors of the rogue Midwestern Brotherhood of Steel's actions and presence would occasionally leak their way back west to Lost Hills in the years and decades after their disappearance. While the Brotherhood of Steel remained outside of politics after the Master's defeat, a new state began to rise in the wasteland out of the seemingly unimportant village of Shady Sands. After the Vault Dweller assisted Shady Sands in 2161 by destroying the Khans and rescuing Tandy in the process, the small settlement enjoyed a period of peace as raider attacks halted. Shady Sands soon prospered, and the settlement's leader, Areta, used their newfound prosperity as an opportunity to develop the community. The village thrived, becoming a major economic power in New California. Trade routes developed, as did cultural exchanges between settlements, leading to the emergence of a national identity movement, which gradually gained popular acceptance. In 2186, Areta first proposed the idea of forming a republican state, and Shady Sands rebranded itself as the New California Republic, or NCR, forming a trial council government to draft a state constitution. The New California Republic was founded on the old world principles of democracy, liberty, justice, and equality under the rule of law. These ideals would gradually spread from the NCR across the wasteland, with Junktown, one of Shady Sands' oldest and most trusted trade partners, becoming one of the NCR's first provisional states. Although the merchant barons of the hub voiced their concerns about joining the NCR, their worries were unable to affect the ultimate outcome. In 2189, the new California Republic was officially voted into existence as a federation of 5 states: Shady Sands, the Los Angeles Boneyard, Maxon, the Hub, and Dayglow. The Hub was the last state to join the NCR, with a final vote of 55 to 45 in favor of joining the federation. Celebrations took place in Shady Sands as President Areta addressed the new nation. In 2196, Areta died, and his daughter Tandy was elected unanimously as the NCR's second president. She would go down in history as the NCR's greatest leader, winning and serving 10 consecutive terms before her death. President Tandy went to great lengths to unify the wasteland, establishing new infrastructure for the NCR's growing population, finding new methods of transportation and production, cleaning roads and rail lines, building forts, fostering caravans and trade inside and out of the Republic, and dealing with any threats to the NCR swiftly and efficiently. President Tandy also reformed the Republic's economy, establishing the NCR dollar as the state's new currency, backed by gold, replacing the old and inconsistent bottle cap currency. By the year 2241, the new California Republic was the largest economic and political power in the wasteland. With the situation stabilized in southern New California, President Tandy set her sights on expanding north. However, northern New California was home to 2 other regional powers, New Reno and Vault City. Soon enough, a power struggle emerged between these 3 states for control of the region, particularly the gold mining settlement of Redding. But while the NCR, New Reno and Vault City vied for control of northern New California, a new threat would slowly reintroduce itself to the wasteland, the Enclave. While the people of the wasteland were left to fend for themselves after the Great War, the remnants of the Old World United States government, safe from the war's devastation at their offshore oil rig in the Pacific, began plotting their return to civilize the wastes and restore humanity's dominance over those they perceived as subhuman mutants. The Enclave had begun developing a plethora of new and advanced technologies, including variations of the T-51B power armor. In 2220, a new suit of advanced power armor was developed by the Enclave for use by their assault troops. By the start of the 2230s, under the leadership of President Dick Richardson, the Enclave began undertaking scouting missions from their oil rig to the new California wasteland, traveling to and from the rig using advanced vertibird helicopters. On July 10, 2236, Enclave scouts rediscovered the ruins of the Mariposa military base. The Enclave Chemical Corps and other scientists immediately began scouring the base, while vertibird assault squads gathered slaves from the surrounding wasteland for use in excavating the base. Excavations began in September of that year. The Enclave's slaves and construction crews dug into the collapsed base, removing the rubble and tons of debris. The unprotected wastelanders soon became exposed to low levels of FEV in the ruins released after the base's destruction, causing them to transform into a new generation of supermutants. Even the Enclave's top soldier, Frank Horrigan, was exposed to FEV and sent back to the oil rig for study. By October, the Enclave supermutants, led by Melchior, realizing they would be executed as soon as the Enclave had what they wanted, began secretly stockpiling weapons for an uprising. In January 2237, excavations were completed, and the Enclave scientists were able to obtain a pure sample of FEV to send back to the oil rig. Suddenly, the supermutants rose up against their overseers. Suffering heavy casualties, the Enclave troops fell back and sealed the supermutants inside the facility. Despite the heavy losses at Mariposa, the Enclave's acquisition of a pure sample of FEV allowed them to begin research into creating a biological agent that would kill any mutated life outside the oil rig. Dubbed FEV Curling 13 after the project's leader, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Curling, the Chemical Corps modified the sample into a brutally efficient killing agent. Before long, the Enclave modified their project's goal of exterminating all mutated life in the world by releasing the modified FEV into the jet stream. Meanwhile, Enclave scientists examined Agent Frank Horrigan's mutations. The mutated trooper was kept heavily sedated, as multiple incidents had already occurred, resulting in major bloodshed. Eventually, the decision was made to put Horrigan back to fieldwork. On March 29, 2239, Frank Horrigan was sealed within a power-armored suit specially designed to fit his massive, mutated physique. Agent Frank Horrigan would now serve as the Enclave's deadly enforcer, dealing with any situations the President needed to resolve. By the start of 2241, the modified FEV project was in its final stages. Final testing required a representative control population to sample the toxin and the inoculation created against it, and so on May 15, 2241, the Enclave gave the all-clear signal to Vault 13 before raiding it, taking its inhabitants to the oil rig to test the inoculation against non-mutated humans. Enclave scientists predicted that the FEV project would be ready for release within the year. President Richardson eagerly anticipated the fulfillment of the project, and the extermination of all non-humans in the world. What he could not anticipate, however, was the arrival of another one of the Wasteland's unlikely heroes, the grandson of the Vault Dweller, who in the summer of 2241 would leave Ario in search of a Garden of Eden creation kit. This young tribal, known to his village as the Chosen One, would venture out on an epic quest to save his people. But much like his grandfather 80 years earlier, his quest would soon turn into a mission to save the entire world from the evil machinations of the Enclave. This is the story we will tell in our next video on the Fallout universe. To ensure you don't miss that, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.